Thank you so much. We'll move on with the next person now.
Hello. I'll be playing Max Bruch Concerto No. 1 in G minor, first movement.
Sounds great. Very beautiful. Shall we stop here? Let's work a little bit. Fantastic. A lot of good things, and you definitely feel this piece. Let's go back to the beginning. We'll work through some details, if you don't mind. So, few general things that I have observed. Like some of the people before you, your tendency is to use the bow too quickly in the lower half, and then having not enough left in the upper half, which causes your sound to die away and breaks your phrases. So you may want to work on sustaining the sound by cultivating slower bow speed in the lower half of the bow. That's my first general comment. Second, always prepare chords and string crossings going to lower strings by raising your arm, not raising the whole bow. You see, that's going to make the quality of your playing overall much, much, much better. And something I mentioned today a couple of times again, you tend to play the passages faster than necessary. Expand them in your head. You should always kind of magnify them. Rule of thumb is if you think it's fast, then you're playing too fast. You know, if you're practicing well and correctly, you should never feel like, oh my God, this is so fast, it's out of control. If it feels out of control, then you should play a little bit slower, or even like practicing a little bit slower. It should never, certainly should never feel fast when you're in the practice room. You know, then if you cultivate this kind of a magnified perception in your mind, it will be much easier to take care of smaller details when you're performing, and everything will be much more under control and much easier to direct and manage while you're playing. You see, it's easy to kind of give inspirational advice, but I would like to give you more of a practical approach to work so that, you know, when you walk out on stage the next time, you really feel confident that nothing could possibly go wrong. So let's go back to the beginning. This is what I would like to do right now, is to work through the mental state behind the performance, you know, like the mental processes that have to go in when we're preparing this technique or that. Start from the beginning, please. So, right away, save the bow on the very first note. It's open string, it's going to sound just fine. So bow distribution is as follows. Half a bow for the G, the other half for B flat. Now, in addition, if you don't vibrate, and you could ask, how could you vibrate? It's open string. You put your third finger down on D string, and you vibrate that. Not only you need to vibrate it, you have to start with very narrow vibrato and increase it. You see, and so the overtones will make open G sound like you're vibrating it. You see, so when you come out of that note, you see, then don't stop. Create this momentum over the course of that first note. So it would propel you all the way to F sharp, you know, because otherwise it becomes a little bit too vertical and too staid. You understand? We want to try and move this along. Go ahead. So when you get to ta-ram, please don't play ta-ram. F sharp is appoggiatura. Do you know what appoggiatura is? Right? The actual chord there is G minor, right? And it comes with the F sharp. F sharp, it's like it's delaying the arrival of G, thus creating a dissonance. We call it appoggiatura, and as I mentioned earlier, dissonance is the most interesting part of the phrase. So you want to make sure you phrase towards it and then away from it. So please don't blow up G, because that makes the phrase lopsided. So ta da ta da ba ba bum. There's plenty of time to resurface after you're done with that G. There's no need to blow it up, you see, because that, you know, is grammatically incorrect. One more time, if you don't mind. It's better. I'll let you think about it some more, because I think you're doing it, but you're sort of blueprinting. I would like for you to take each of those ideas and take it a little more literally and magnify it. Because right now you're doing all of it, but it's more in the form of a hint rather than a declaration. I would like a declaration. Let's do the second phrase, please. Good. Let's talk about this phrase. In my mind, there is a difference. There's a big difference in how we approach them. Yours sound like they should be the same character. So first phrase, G minor, kind of philosophical, unhurried in general, you know, and it never gets truly dramatic. It's always a little bit understated. Now comes E flat major chord. Ba da 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 dum ba ba dum. Much more impatient, much more, you could even say, intolerant, impatient to get somewhere else. You know, so in both dynamics and articulation, as well as the direction of the phrase and even the tempo, you see, all of that needs to project impatience, starting from how you articulate the very first E flat to how the rest of it progresses. Now, let's talk about the passage. If you start slower, if you take more time in the beginning of the passage, it won't feel so excruciatingly difficult towards the end. You know, it's really not all that fast. You know, just be smart about how you approach it. You have to know where your limit is. We all have a limit. You know, so when I want to make a Celerando, I always know how fast is too fast. You understand? So I recommend you to kind of go backwards and assess where you want to get. And from there, you sort of calculate backwards. How slow do you need to start to create gradual accelerando without overwhelming yourself with the speed? Okay? So with all that in mind, let's do the second phrase now. And that's exact same tempo you used in the beginning. I would like for you to move. Also, if you don't start from the string, articulation is a little too vague. Please put the bow down, hook the bow on it. You know, you have to really feel the string. Pa! You know, we need that sound, not wa. Pa! Go ahead, try again. So you articulate and then slow down the bow speed so you could open up the note towards the end. Right, so we're going to go on. I'll just mention a couple of things. Da, ya, ba, ba, bum. I would recommend moving that a little bit more and accent every note as you go. At the very end, you can relax more in both dynamics and articulation. Very smooth. Ya, da, 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 da. So that when the orchestra comes in, it really feels like this over-the-top emotional outburst. You understand? So all that impatience that you displayed has to completely dissipate towards the end of the phrase. You see, if you don't like that approach, then you have to change completely what Bruch wrote, scratch that diminuendo, and make a big unapologetic crescendo towards the end of the phrase. That's another way of doing it. You know, it's not a great way to change what composer's intentions were, but if you really don't like that diminuendo, then don't apologize for it. Say, you know what, this is my interpretation. I feel I have to hand it over to the orchestra, you know, with the same character that they use when they come in. That's, you know, it's another way of doing it. You know, so if you make that decision, don't apologize for it and do it like you mean it. What you don't want to do is something in between. Okay, let's go on to the next section. So again, please start everything from the string. Bam, ba bam. Treat 16th like accented note and make sure there is space on both sides of it because otherwise there's not enough articulation. Ya, ba bam, you understand? And so as you go towards the last chord, please crescendo on a note before it. Da, bum, and do not lift the bow. Lift your arm, don't lift the bow. So let's try this part. I would like for you not to stop the bow. Raise your arm, don't stop the bow, don't lift it before the chord. Better, not better enough. We need to do more. Ya, da, da, bum. And then once you hit the chord, please sustain. Better. Intonation is on you. Your B flat is too low. I can't clean intonation in this format. I'll just tell you because sometimes you don't prepare left hand the way you should. Intonation is a bit approximate. But let's start there and keep going. Okay. Do this for me. Put down on D string. First finger on G, second finger on A, third finger on B flat. Okay? And then move your first finger across to A string. Then play. That's how you play in tune. You see, you measure whole steps and half steps precisely. You have your first and third finger down with the second finger up. You're trying to measure third. So it's case in point to what I was telling a couple of people before you. Impossible. We can't. You know, unless you measure whole steps and half steps, your intonation will always be anybody's guess. You know, you might accidentally play in tune, but most likely not. You know, try again. That's better. You see, that's already in tune. I still want you to play the note before the chord, longer and with more crescendo. Do it again. Good girl. Can you please sustain the chord? Da, pa, da, slower bow once you roll the chord. Okay, keep going for now. It's all better, but I'm sure if you practice it a little bit, it will be better yet. Keep going. Tell me, are you afraid of this passage?
Not really.
Not really. Well, you know you're swallowing some notes. You're so anxious to get to the next beat. Let me tell you a secret. open secret, obviously, happy to share with all of you, how to approach it. Sometimes the left hand problems are actually in the bow. So here's how you handle it. You accent the G, the very first note. Then don't move the bow. Let it drift until you get to the B flat. So you start this passage at the frog, use quarter of a bow for the G. Then the remaining notes in that figure of 7, you need to put in a quarter of the bow under the middle. And then ta-da-pa-pam, you use subito, faster bow speed, and you stay, for the remainder of those 16ths, you stay in the upper half. Can you do it once slowly so we really make sure that we put everything in right places? Exactly, that's the bow distribution. So let's do it slowly, the whole passage, and then we'll build the tempo. Now, Anika, give me accent on G, then barely drift through the rest of the bow. Very light. When your bow plays lightly and barely moves, your left hand will be much more free to move, because you get stuck to the fingerboard when you press with the bow, you see. Not to mention, since there are a lot of string crossings there, however many fingers you can prepare, you should prepare. So you need to learn that this is not something you can do on the spot. It will require practicing, but I will quickly talk you through this. So when you play yam, da, then you put 2, 3, and 1 down, right? So 1 goes on B flat, da, da. So you prepare that. Then you put D and G together, right? D on A string, third finger, and G on E string, right away. So basically, you put fingers down in pairs instead of one by one. It's going to save you time. You'll be able to play much faster. It's going to be much better for your string crossings, you see. And as a result, it will be consistent and very clean. So this probably, I mean, it might be difficult to do on the spot, but let's try. But right now, I'm really interested in bow distribution. That you can do right here. Go ahead. Exactly, exactly. So let's do it in tempo and keep going. One more time. Don't push yourself. There's more time than you think. Like that. So the way I see it, I'm watching your left hand. Right now, that's where the problem is. Because bow distribution made it better, but for as long as you put fingers down one by one, this is not going to work. You have to put blocks of fingers down. And as I mentioned to you before, when you play ya bam, here, just as in that previous place which has a chord, you need to crescendo on the first half note and give me a strong accent on the second half note and stay glued to the string. Could you start right there with the half notes and we can keep going? Exactly. Please subdivide. Dum, ba, ba, right? Play as late as possible, that 16th note. How long is this note? Yeah, so da, off, right? You're cutting it short too quickly. Okay, let's, in the remaining time, let's skip to the second subject. We'll work through some lyrical parts. General advice. Do you remember when Suan and I worked on the Wieniawski concerto? How we broke up into different tasks, right? How we worked on intonation by playing really lightly and slowly, and then we worked on sound by playing without vibrato, and then we worked on vibrato by playing with the bow just consistent eighths, and then we put it together. I would recommend that same method for any lyrical section and any piece, including this one, you know. So right now we don't have to do it because you already understand the method and we can kind of focus on other things. But if you want detailed, really expressive phrasing, I would definitely recommend splitting this into tasks so you could kind of focus on each one in turn and then at the end put it together. Would you be so kind as to start the beginning of that second subject? Anika? So first things first, rhythm. Please give me the pulse. Don't do anything with time. This is where you can start to slowly unravel towards a more relaxed tempo of the second subject. Until then, please keep the tempo of the first subject. You know, we talked about similar spot in Saint-Saëns concerto, right? There's also a transition theme where you start in the tempo of the first subject, and at the end of that, you transition into the tempo of the second subject. You know, so keep the pulse and know where you're coming from, where you're going to, and make sure you don't do anything random in between. You understand? Let's please start again. Okay, very good. So that's where you have to kind of relax. If you were a singer, you would need a breath right before that last beat. So take advantage of it and take a breath before that last beat. One last thing I wanted to mention. When you have a trill, you know, a little bit later on, when you are playing forte, fortissimo on an E string, please put an accent on the downbeat F, because you're playing it like it's some kind of grace note coming out of the trill and it completely gets lost. So please skip to that trill. Let's just correct that spot. Exactly. You know, when I perform this concerto, I usually split. And I actually take F down bow, that would be the bowing. I mean, you don't have to do it, but I think if you agree with the phrasing concept, this will make easier. You know, as Nathan Milstein used to say, why take the stairs when you can take the elevator? You know, if that's our phrase objective, that's how we achieve it. I'm really sorry that we're running out of time. I would like to address this to all of you. It's been a great pleasure to have a chance to work with you in masterclass setting. And I really hope that, you know, I always say, if you've learned one thing, then it was worth it. So I hope that each of you had a chance to learn at least one thing from all the work we've done today. And I'm happy to take questions from any of you.